My poor, innocent children, you follow false gods, but fear not, for I have returned to bring you a new world, a prosperous world, a world for the elite and the strong, a world with a decent third X-Men movie. The apocalypse is nigh! Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy here today to review the latest summer blockbuster, X-Men Apocalypse. So X-Men Apocalypse takes place in 1983 and follows the X-Men, both young and old, as they face their biggest threat yet. Apocalypse. Widely considered to be the first mutant born on Earth who plans to destroy the world so that he can rebuild it and rule over it with an iron fist as the true god of this world. Not if the X-Men have something to say about it. Like most people, I was really excited for X-Men Apocalypse. I mean, how could I not be? It's the follow-up film to the excellently done X-Men Days of Future Past. Bryan Singer once again returns as director, helming the franchise that he not only knows so well but also made his career. The new cast of actors and actresses that they got for the film looked fantastic and perfectly fit the roles that they were given. And to top it all off, the trailers looked really amazing. They looked really kick-ass and they got me really pumped to see the film. But then the early reviews for the film came out and public opinion about the film has slowly been dipping into the negative. But after seeing the film for myself, I'm here to see whether or not those reviews truly hold up water. First thing I want to shine light on is the acting. It's solid once again. Everyone does a really good job at portraying their characters. James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender still kill it as Professor Xavier and Magneto respectively. Like, they're just so freaking awesome. Jennifer Lawrence does good as Mystique, Nicholas Hoult does good as Beast, Peter Evans still kills it as Quicksilver. Like, he's just so entertaining to watch. Like, he is a perfect Quicksilver. To me, he's still the funniest and most entertaining character in the entire X-Men franchise. And as for the new additions to the cast, while they weren't as great as the ones I just mentioned, they were serviceable, and I, for one, liked them in the roles. I like Sophie Turner as the new Jean Grey. She looks the part, she plays the part pretty well. I like the new Cyclops, I like the new Storm, but scratch that, I love the new Storm. I fell in love with this representation of Storm. Not only is she sexy and fine as hell, but she's a total badass. Not only that, the actress does a really good job of portraying the character and pulling off the accent. Like, I actually believed she was Storm. I also like the guy who plays Nightcrawler. He pulled off the accent pretty well, and Nightcrawler was pretty cool. Olivia Munn as Psylocke was pretty badass, but she didn't really do much of anything, but still, pretty badass. And then we got the big baddie himself, Apocalypse. Dude is intense as hell. Like, throughout the entire film, he just gives off this menacing vibe whenever he's in a scene with his deep, booming voice and his terrifying powers. Like, whenever this guy uses his powers, I mean, you know that this is a guy you do not want to mess with at all. And Oscar Isaacs freaking kicked ass as Apocalypse. Like, the guy just pulled off that menace factor very, very well. Good job, Oscar. And, yeah. Those were the only good things that I found about this film. The rest? Not so good. The first issue with this film deals with its story. It's just not all that interesting or even all that enticing, and for two major reasons. First reason is that the story here is way too by the numbers for a superhero film in this day and age, especially for an X-Men film. It's your whole superpowered villain is trying to rule / destroy the world cliche that we have seen in millions upon millions of stories on TV and in movies. It's been done to death. And I know many of you are going to say, well, that's what some of the X-Men films have been like as well in the past. You know, this really powerful being is trying to destroy the world, trying to rule the world. And you make a valid point, but there was much more going on in that story. There's much more layers to them and much more depth. And that leads me to my next reason as to why this story was pretty blasé. The story also heavily lacked the depth and the heart that the previous two films had. The conflicts that happened in those two films, while they were large in scale, they were always character-centric. That's what drove the story and enriched it. It made it much more enthralling, much more interesting. It added so much weight to what was happening in the story. But here in X-Men Apocalypse, the story is basically just, hey, there's this really evil blue guy that's trying to destroy the world. We should probably stop him. The characters, while really cool to see, especially when they're using their powers, were rather hollow, either lacking character development or usefulness or both. Scott, Jean, Nightcrawler, Angel, Psylocke, Storm, they barely got any real time to flesh out their characters, what motivates them, what their personalities were like, so that the audience can become attached to them, actually give a damn about them whenever they're in like terrible situations, or whenever they're about to fight a foe. By the end of the film, all you really know about these characters are what their powers are. You don't really give a damn whether they live or die or whatever happens to them. And god damn it, how do you make Jubilee an even lamer character than she was in the 90s cartoon show? Jubilee had nothing to do in this film. And I was actually really stoked to see Jubilee in X-Men Apocalypse. I was excited when I heard they were bringing her into the film because I thought, okay, they're finally gonna redeem her character. They're actually gonna give her something to do. They're gonna make her interesting. They're gonna make her badass. They're gonna make her likable. But instead, they squandered this opportunity to just make her like the punchline of a joke or just some fan service for people who grew up with the 90s TV show and grew up with Jubilee, even though they grew up hating Jubilee. And as much as I know it's popular to hate on Jubilee because of how annoying she is, god damn it, the character has potential. The character deserves a chance to be actually interesting and likable, and they had the opportunity to do that here, but no. Completely sidelined her, completely made her a joke, and she's not even involved in any of the major events of the story. What the hell? And speaking of useless, Rose Byrne's character. Now granted, I was very happy to see her return to the franchise, as I really liked her character in X-Men First Class. She did a lot to help with that story, and she actually was very involved and was a crucial part in forming the Xavier School for Gifted Children. I liked her character. She served a purpose. In this film, not so much. It just kind of felt like she was shoehorned in like, hey, remember her from the first film? Yes, we brought her back now, and hey, here she is doing not much of anything. I mean, they kind of just shoehorn her into many scenes. She's basically the Lois Lane of this film. She shows up, she goes with the team, and not really much of a purpose for her being there, just to be like eye candy and kind of help Xavier now and again, I guess. And oh, the relationships in this film. They're even worse than the lacking character development, as none, absolutely none of the characters form any real, convincing, or even genuine bonds. I never felt like any of them were really friends or that they actually cared for each other or watched out for each other. There's just no real bonds in this film. The most heartbreaking and tragic one of them all is the relationship / blooming romance between Scott Summers and Jean Grey. Where the hell is the spark? Where the hell is the passion? This is supposed to be the genesis of their relationship. This is the start of it all, and they have no chemistry. I never felt like they ever shared a real moment where I actually felt like they connected and like, oh, I'm finally getting into this girl, or I'm finally getting into this guy. You know, they had a real chance to show this blooming romance, why they ended up together, why did they fall for each other, and they completely wasted. Completely wasted. What a shame. It also disappointed me to see a blooming friendship among some of the mutants that is completely squandered and gets no real focus or attention. And one last thing pertaining to the characters. Many of the character arcs in this film were either poorly executed or completely betrayed what the established character is. The three most damning ones were Mystique's, Quicksilver's, and Magneto's. Mystique had this whole character arc dealing with her being looked upon as like a hero for mutant kind, and it had an interesting start, and it would have been such an interesting character arc for that character to go through. But the way that they concluded and the way they just executed throughout the entire film is just piss poor. It's really terribly done. Same for Quicksilver. He had a very interesting and potentially emotional character arc that was really going somewhere until it was brought to a screeching halt at the end of the film for no reason. Absolutely no reason. I was sitting there with my friends Brian and Chris, and we were baffled as to why they didn't give some resolution to the story. It clearly could have had a resolution, but they decided, no. Let's just keep beating around the bush for a few more movies, and then we'll finally give it some resolution. Seriously, what the fuck? But without question, the most damning and frustrating character arc in the entire film goes to Magneto. Not only was his character arc extremely cliche, but it goes against everything that the character was established to be. It made no sense. Absolutely no sense, and was just tacked on drama to bring him back into the fray. That upset me the most in this film. I'm just like, really? Did you have to do that type of story? And his actions in the film absolutely make no sense. From beginning to end, his actions are just mind-bogglingly stupid. Like, the character wouldn't do something like that. Now, many of you may think that I have a problem with Magneto acting all emotional in this film, and that's not the case. Magneto has always been an emotional character, and sometimes he even acts on his emotions. That's what really drives him. But the way that they executed it in this film, it just doesn't make sense that the character would do it. I know I'm being really vague, but I don't want to spoil what happens with this character, but from what the character has been established to be, both in the movies, the TV shows, and the comics, he would have never done the things that he did in this film, and it just baffles me that they did it. Like, literally, I can't, why? The action in this film was on par with Batman v Superman, meaning that there was very little, and the ones that we actually got were pretty underwhelming, minus one really epic throwdown. Like, that fight was really well done, but all the rest, I mean, some were decent and others were just like, they really don't care. There's not really much weight or tension or even flair to the action. It just comes off as visual noise. And the climax of the film was really disappointing, like just a huge letdown. The visuals in this film weren't all that great, which was so surprising considering how great the visuals were in X-Men Days of Future Past. I mean, they have the money to give us some spectacular visuals, but some of the scenes looked really fake and cartoony. Like, there's a scene where you see the water, and my god, it's the most obvious CGI water I've ever seen, and I'm like, you guys are better than this. You could do better than this. So overall, though I did find some good things with this film, and there were a couple enjoyable, entertaining, and hilarious scenes here and there, I find myself agreeing with the critics on this one. This is not a good film. The story is generic. The characters are weak, the action not compelling, the visuals lackluster, and even thinking about all the things that I stated in this video, it just makes me even more upset and more disappointed. This is such a weak follow-up to the excellent Days of Future Past, and they even have the same team that worked on that film, and to see them kind of just flounder here with the sequel is just so upsetting. It really could have been a fun film, it could have been something great, but it just turned out to be a 2 out of 5 stars. an easily forgettable film. But as always, I'm not the end-all be-all opinion when it comes to X-Men Apocalypse. I'm sure some of you outright disagree with me and are just raging in the comments, oh, this review is stupid, give it an F, thumbs down, unsubscribe. And I'm sure some of you actually really enjoyed the review and actually agree with my opinions. So I'd love to know your thoughts about X-Men Apocalypse. Do you love it? Do you think it's way better than X-Men Days of Future Past? Or do you find it really boring and dull and disappointing? You just couldn't get into it. And let me know, what is your all-time favorite X-Men trilogy? The new one or the old one? Comment below, let me know. I probably will do a spoiler review for this, and hopefully I'll see Alice through the looking glass. Not looking forward to that film though. And also, I'm gonna be at MegaCon this Saturday. So if you're in the Orlando area and just so happen to be at MegaCon, hey, come look for me. I'll be walking around, I'll be wearing my Black Critic Guy shirt, so come find me if you want to, and yeah, should be a fun time. So until then guys, if you'd like to see more videos on this channel, be a part of the Black Critic crew, please hit that subscribe button below, like this video if you really enjoyed it, and I'm talking about this second, the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace YouTube.